Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Cook, and I'm the founder of Capiche, Wine Marketing and PR. And I'm so happy to have a full room here today. Thank you all for being here. I've put together a really fun panel of people from 3 different tasting rooms to talk about, does your tasting room match your brand? And as I was thinking about who the panel should be, I was thinking I wanted people from different AVAs, people from different size wineries, and also people from very diverse brands. And so with me today, I have Steph Prang from Naked Winery in Hood River, Christine Collier, the winery director at Willamette Valley Vineyards, and Jen Allen, the owner of Two Hawk Vineyards and Winery in Medford, Oregon. And at the end of the table, I have Dr. Vicki Purslow, who is a research analyst with Capiche. And after we do the wine branding panel, Vicki is going to give us some brief results from the Oregon Wine Tasting Room survey that she just completed in the last month. And it's a survey that we had over 70% of all of the Oregon wineries participate in, and we will be sharing those, visiting the different AVAs, going to their association meetings, and also sharing the full results with all of the people that participated in the survey. So, to get started, I've asked each of the wineries to show some slides of their tasting room and talk about what the brand experience is that they're going for in their winery. So we'll just get started with that.
Well, hi, everyone. First of all, I am not Becky Williams, the secret weapon. I'm stepping in for her today. My name is Steph Prang, and I'm part of the marketing department at Naked Winery. Becky had a family emergency. So firstly, in front of all of you, you'll see a Naked Winery calendar. That's something that we hand out in our tasting rooms to our guests and our members. It really shows who we are, what the brand is, what our mission is, and gives you an experience. Is it hard to hear? Is this better? Okay. Okay, so first off, Naked Winery, who are we? We were established in 1999. We've seen tremendous growth since then. Not only online, but also in our tasting rooms. We currently have 3 Oregon locations, one being in Bend, which is in our Old Mill shopping district. We've been there for 4 years now. Our other location we have in downtown McMinnville, and that's been open almost 2 years. And then our flagship location is located in Hood River, Oregon, along with our winery and our distribution center there. And that tasting room has been open since 2008. So first off, just to give you background, who is Naked Winery? Well, we have a mission. Our mission is to cut the divorce rate in half. We're inviting couples to share a glass of wine nightly with each other. We do that because we believe if you take 15 minutes out of your day, you sit down, you turn off your digital devices, you open a bottle of wine, and you just sit back and you say, how was your day? It opens up communication, relationships, and experiences. And that's the key word. We are all about experiences at Naked Winery. You'll also probably, if you've seen our wines, you'll notice we're a little bit risque and provocative in the labels that we have. We do this because we believe that wine doesn't, it can be playful, it can be fun. It doesn't have to be just about the wine or the grapes. It's, again, about that experience. We often say we aim to tease. Because we love the memories that you create when you are getting naked. So I'm just going to quickly go through some slides of our tasting rooms and show you the experience that you would receive. Okay, this first one here is from our Bend tasting room. Throughout the slides, you're going to notice we have wide open tasting room areas. They're colorful, they're bright. Lots of people are smiling, having a good time, making memories. Here's from our McMinnville location. Again, lovely ladies, they're having fun. We actually have these picture props that we use so that we can bring the tasting room experience online on social media. These are very shareable for our members and our guests. And it also does go back to, it isn't just about us, the winery, it is about our members and our guests, and we try and relay that by making it more about them and doing things like picture props. We want you to leave and say, that wine was delicious, and I had a great time, and I'm coming back, and I'm gonna bring friends. So throughout the year, we do a number of events in our tasting room. Some of them are a little bit out of the norm. We try and throw a number of these. Basically, we provide a sense of escapism for our guests and our members. It's just escaping from that regular work life and the everyday mundane things. So there's no phones ringing, there's no conversation of work. We have goldfish and chocolate to munch on. There's music playing in the background for our members. And we offer things that from your basic wine virgin is going to like, but also your wine connoisseur. It's just about being authentic to who we are and the experience that you're going to have. So here is our Bend location. We have seating outside as well there. It's very comfortable, it's very relaxing, it makes you want to come, just very relatable. And then turn inside here in our Bend location, you'll notice again, like I said, the colorful palette that we use. It's bright, cheerful, and fun. We display our clothing along the wall, our merchandising, and then we have areas for people to sit and connect and to experience the wine together. We come and we serve at the tables, but we also invite people to walk around and interact with each other. This is a fun one. So every year we do an annual experience. It's, again, a little bit out of the norm. This one was taken last summer. We had a Vegas experience. So as you'll see in the corner there, Liberace and Liza Minnelli showed up and gave a little performance. And actually right in the middle there in the pink wig, that would be one of our owners, Dave Behringer. So everybody gets in on the fun. And you can't see, but he is also wearing a tutu. Yeah. So here is a couple at our Bend location. They are living out who we are, our mission, spending time together, coming into the tasting room together. Here's our flagship location in Hood River. Again, you'll see the consistency with the color palette and the openness, very, very clean and bright. And we also try and keep the decor up to date with what's going on seasonally. So here it's decorated for Valentine's Day. Artwork, also bringing who we are on the artwork on our walls. This says we aim to tease. It's very playful, it's very fun, and you're going to see this across the board in all three of our tasting rooms. Staff. Staff is hugely important to your winery. We strive to hire people that are friendly, personable. You notice big smiles, lots of laughter. So once we do hire, which we spend, they're our greatest advocates, so we do invest a lot of time in hiring our staff. But after that, then we do spend the time in training. We do monthly trainings with all of our tasting room staff to teach them sales techniques, but also to reiterate our mission. So when they're doing all their tastings, they're talking about what our mission is and encouraging guests to join us on that mission. We also dedicate one sales trainer for all of our tasting rooms so that we have consistency across the board. And we also believe that you can't train people on the fundamentals of being personable and friendly, but you can train them on wine knowledge, so that's why we invest so much time in hiring people that are going to be those storytellers for your brand, and they're going to create an experience. This is just a fun one here. This is a normal scene from our tasting rooms. Large groups, bachelor parties coming in and then sharing it on social. So they're bringing the in-tasting room experience online. Here's a great photo of some of our staff. It just makes you smile, makes you want to have fun, come in, very inviting. And notice that they're all wearing our gear, so they're promoting our brand as well, and it's also identifiable to our guests who's working. This is a great photo as well. A couple that are club members. These are our club members. This is our tribe. They believe in our mission, and they come in daily and interact with us and tell us how much they love our brand. I mean, nothing makes us feel better than when we see couples coming in and sharing our mission with us. Here's a quick photo here of our staff at an experience. saying, Oktoberfest isn't just for craft beer. It's also, you can have fun with it and for our wine industry as well. Another picture of couples basking in our mission. And then also, you don't have to do standard events like live music or dinners, things like that. You can have fun with it. You can be playful. We brought Elvis in. I mean, come on, look at this. This gal's having a great time here. So, and then in addition to that, tattoos. You ask, why tattoos? Well, think about it. When people are interacting, sitting down with each other, they become engaged. They're putting these tattoos on. It's not just for the staff, but also for the guests as well. It's just creating that interaction. Community, huge part of what we do as well. We donate throughout the year to different charities. This one was in October. We donated a portion of our rosé and our blush wine sales to breast cancer. So in addition to that, we put our playful spin on it, save the boobies. So yeah. And then this one is just fun. I mean, this is such a memorable experience here. And then our last location here, McMinnville. Again, same color palette. Just a few things to note is that we are family friendly at all of our wineries. All but one of our locations, we do allow for pets. We also give small cheese trays out for munching, and this is also offered to members as part of their membership free when they come in as well. And then just the flip side here is the front of the McMinnville, everything being consistent. And our club members, this is a happy couple joining us on our mission to connect and share wine. You can see they've got the wine glasses, their membership cards, their new gear, and they're taking what they learned about our brand in the tasting room home with them. All right, so lastly, what are some takeaways from the tasting rooms of Naked Winery? Yes, you can have good wines, but why not give everyone something more? Give them an experience. Give them a reason to come back and experience you again and bring others. And also, make sure that you're conveying the same message everywhere, whether that be online or in your tasting rooms. So if you're going to social media, you're going to your tasting rooms, you're going to all those locations, you're gonna get the exact same experience. So making sure you tell the story of your brand there.
Thanks, Becky. It's really pretty brilliant to have all those props that people love to get their photos taken with, and then they post them on social media, and that works perfectly with your demographic. So it's very fun. And now for something completely different.
I know. Listening to you, I was thinking I was probably invited up here to show the prudish side of the wine industry and how we really excel at that. I think that's probably why we're spaced as we are. But hopefully you guys don't mind hearing a little bit about that as well. So I'm Christine Collier. I'm the winery director for Willamette Valley Vineyards. And the way that my position is I get to oversee winemaking, the vineyards sales, direct sales, and our marketing. And certainly our tasting room is the headquarter for our direct brand. And so a little bit about us, and then I can go in how we kind of live our brand through that space, is our winery was founded in 1983 by our founder, Jim Bruneau, but not with him solely. It's actually a brand that was built around wine enthusiasts getting together and believing in this idea that Oregon could be a world-class wine region. So today, that's actually resulted in a community crowdfunding where we have just about 9,000 wine enthusiast owners. So imagine having 9,000 bosses that get to come to your tasting room on a regular basis, and then also your wine club members. And so I actually grew up across the vineyard. My first experience with our tasting room was at the age of 4 when I walked up the gravel road and tried to sell friendship bracelets to the first wine tasters on opening weekend. Things have changed a little bit. We actually recently went through a remodel and expansion of our tasting room in barrel cellars back in 2013. We opened in 2014 with this space that you guys are seeing on the slides, and I thought I would just share a little bit about that planning process and what went into that, and then kind of some best practices that we've learned now being in this space for a few years. So with anything related to your winery, and I'm sure you heard yesterday at the business tracks, is you really define your brand through your values and how you live those out in your unique story, and then also how you want to be positioned in the customer's mind. And for us, our values are really clear. It's in our mission statement, but it's also, through how our values are how we act. And those are, first and foremost, collaboration. We are based in a really unique ownership structure, so that is kind of what drives us, is to represent and work with those people on what they want to see and how to best serve them, and then also with our industry partners. Being stewards of the land, that is definitely based in our environmental practices that we take a part in, and then our leadership in telling the Oregon story through wine, particularly Pinot Noir and cold climate varietals. So we have 30 years of stories that reinforce those values, and we want to be positioned in the customer's mind as being the brand of choice for Oregon Pinot Noir. And in order to do that, we need to supply enough and have enough volume to be a customer choice across the country. So our vision in our remodel back in 2013 was to create a space that really fostered storytelling and warm hospitality. We worked with actually an architect that's sitting here in the room, so Nathan Good, who's in that back corner. And kind of the idea was to be very inclusive and very approachable, because our tasting room does have a very unique location, being right off I-5, just south of Salem. So we at least think we are, the highest trafficked tasting room location in Oregon. And we also are sometimes people's first introduction to Oregon wines, and sometimes their only if they're not getting on Highway 99 or venturing down to Southern Oregon. So we really take that as we needed to create a space that could accommodate high volume, but we also wanted to create a lot of spaces that were a bit more intimate than we had in the past for our top customers. We created our own space for our owners and our club members so that they would have a space where the sense of belonging, pride about what they created, and then ongoing engagement was really important. So a bit about the physical location. We incorporated as many Northwest materials and reclaimed materials as we could, including our beautiful wood floors that were actually pallets that came through the Port of Portland from Vietnam. They were tropical hardwoods. So they're a really stunning example of something that is used often in the wine industry. We also included other elements that you would find in a more home setting. So very comfortable, cozy seating places. We have 4 fireplaces. And then we also did this beautiful open kitchen concept. And just like in your home, and when people are designing their homes, the kitchen really is the heart of it, and that's where most people are congregating. So to have this really nice open kitchen in the center of the tasting room kind of makes people feel very comfortable instantly. And we also have farm tables that are done in very communal seatings to kind of reinforce that collaboration and community throughout the tasting room, that serve as seating areas for our daily food pairing menu, which is served 11 to 6 each day. A little bit more about the winery chef and the team. We really took to heart the quote that Robert Mondavi said, that Napa wasn't Napa until the chefs moved in. And that's really the idea of you have to create a full destination if you want people to, travel into the Oregon wine country. They need somewhere to stay. They definitely need some, places to eat. And it's about creating that full destination. It's even more important to us, being that we are not located around 300 to 500 other neighbors. It was very much our determination to become a destination and to have reasons why people would come. And the winery chef principle is a big part of that. Our team is out there in the front working with customers. They're not necessarily hidden in the back of house in the kitchen. So they're out there talking to people about how the wine interacts with food. They're leading the food and wine presentations. Each Friday and Saturday night, we're hosting wine dinners that are 4-course prefix meals that's presented by the winery chef. And so that's really been our way, and it's a critical way of how we're connecting and kind of, we call it a mousetrap of why people want to come see us. So then in addition to our estate tasting room, the larger space that has the tasting bar areas, we do have our club room for our wine club members and owners, and it is a much different experience. Those people are already familiar with your brand, so really that's an area that's for them, and they get to use it as they want to. So we have different wines. The atmosphere is much more relaxed, almost lounge-like. And then finally, we did build new barrel cellars in a winery space. These are dual-purpose spaces, so that on the weekends and on key event days, we do move into the barrel cellar and do a lot of seated tastings. We also have our library that features some of our favorite wines and vintages, but also historic wines and vintages from other producers around the Willamette Valley. And we love kind of being able to show off and tell stories of other people. I see Joe Dobbs in the room, and we love to tell people about some of the early vintages that he made with us, and then be able to open one and then tell about what he's doing now. So things like that are really good educational opportunities. We do clonal blending seminars, and we do AVA tastings in those spaces, and that's really to serve the more high-end customer seeking more experience than just what a bar can provide. So just a few learning lessons. I always think it's best to kind of hear what didn't work or what we found as best practices. So we have used a lot of outside the wine industry research to kind of build this space. One that is relatively new, so it wasn't around when we were doing our research, but I think most people should go and visit if you haven't, is to go up to Seattle to Starbucks, the Reserve Roastery, because they are doing a lot of amazing things in getting the customer involved in kind of inspiring the craft of coffee. But imagine, what we're doing is inspiring the craft and passion that we have for winemaking. So they've done just an excellent job. We attended Ritz-Carlton seminars for hospitality and customer service, as well as the Walt Disney World hospitality and service professionals that have the seminar space in Florida. Both companies are excellent examples, and you can send your hospitality teams down there. We also looked at Apple on how they do concierge servicing to get people to the right experience within the store. Because as you can imagine, walking into these spaces on peak days, it can be very overwhelming unless you instantly get that warm greeting, a little bit of qualification on what you're here for, if you visited before, and then get navigated on where to go. So that was definitely something we learned through other retailers and people that have done it longer and better than we have. To kind of reinforce what Steph was saying, hiring the right people. Over the years, I think we have learned that having a range of ages on our staff and some diversity on our staff really serves us well. We have some of our founding owners that still continue to work in the tasting room 2 to 3 days a week. And they've built relationships with these customers where those customers are now planning their visit to our winery during their shifts, during their time on the floor. So, and then when you have the right people, really work on rewarding them for the metrics that you want to base your performance on. So we do individual sales goal, wine club sign up, and different metrics. We measure that with our team. And then we put money behind that to help reinforce. And I think the people and the culture, we really try to have a culture that's based on achievement and friendly kind of pursuit. And so this tends to work really well with the personalities that we employ, that they're very driven. They want to know what success looks like. So if you give them the metrics you're looking for and then give them the money behind that, they really align to what you want to achieve. We've recently started doing live interviews. I actually have our retail operations manager in here who oversees that process. But we do pay them. It's a great opportunity to assess a little bit better the cultural fit, the questions that are in their mind, how they interact with the customer before they're a full-time committed employee to you. It's been just a great learning experience on both our ends to make sure we're getting in that relationship, knowing everything about each other. A couple other ones that I just wanted to point out was, so often I think the tasting room staff is left out of the company planning and strategy. And I know this has been the case even for us during certain times, but we've really done a better job about regular tasting room meetings that include our founder and myself to do the wine training, to ask the questions, because your customers expect those tasting room members to be an expert on everything going on with you. And if they, stumble or don't have confidence, it just doesn't give a great example and a great impression. So I would say minimum once a month. There are just so many things that are changing in the vineyard and with wine releases, that's a minimum. But also get together at least annually to do a strategy meeting and give them a little bit more of the big picture and the why you're doing things, a little bit more context. Because when you give them that why, they just act like an army for you, and they really do go out in the community and are your best form of public relations. And then the last one I wanted to share is just encouraging the photo opportunities. Clearly, Naked does this really well, but there's just so many examples of how the wine industry is so social and why people gravitate towards spending their free time on the weekends, coming to our businesses and taking photos and sharing it with their friends and family. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Stoller's white Adirondack chairs posted on Facebook and Instagram on the weekends, but I just think that is amazing branding opportunity, because it probably is even on your phones. That's a really memorable image that they've created. For us, it's when people get to go in our barrel cellar. Their phones are out instantly. And providing that with, signature hashtags and ways that people can connect is really important for getting more customers there, and then also letting your customers share it with their connections.
Okay. Thanks, Christine. And if anybody has not been to Christine's Tasting Room and Winery, I would say go. I would also say call ahead and see if you can get a private tour, and you'll really get to see all the ins and outs of it. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Jen Allen I invited because Jen has kind of a whole different thing going on. She and her husband bought Two Hawk 3 years ago, and they have been going through a process of rebranding, repositioning, which if any of you have tried to do that, it's not quite as easy as you might think. And so Jen has been making great strides in that, and I'm happy to have her talk about what she's been doing.
Thanks, Chris. As Chris just said, we are still in the process of doing a rebranding process. We bought Two Hawk 3 years ago in March of 2014. The original owners had the tasting room open at that point for about a year and a half. And during that time, it had really developed a reputation as a place to party. The wine was just terrible, I'll just be honest. There was live music every Friday and Saturday night, sports on TV during the day. It was open till late, even during the week, and then on the weekends it was open until 10 or 11 p.m. The bar stools were horse saddles, servers and Daisy Dukes. It just really wasn't a classy feel, and that wasn't what we are going for. So, what we are going for, our intention is to produce and provide ultra-premium wines that are served in a casual but upscale atmosphere, wines served by our employees who have a passion for wine, passion for sharing our stories with our guests. And so in order to make the changes that we wanted, we had to work on two fronts. We had to amp up the wine quality, and we had to create a much better tasting room experience. So as I'm sure all of you know, it takes time to change a wine profile and also use up what we had in the cellar that was in existence when we bought Two Hawk. So over the last 3 years, we've been working on the wine front. We planted more vines, high quality vines. My husband and business partner Ross is a third generation farmer, so we've been farming a lot smarter than was done in the past in order to produce that ultra premium fruit that we're looking for in order to produce those ultra premium wines. Ross uses, he's got a lot of natural intuition when it comes to farming. He also does ongoing research in order to, combine basically old world farming with modern technology in order to create our best regimen. We also, last year in 2016, we built a state-of-the-art winery, and we hired a proven winemaker to make wine for us. And so with 2016's vintage, that's our first in-house vintage, and we're really excited about everything that's happening with that. In the tasting room side, I really focused on hiring experienced, highly competent wine professionals whenever I could. And then when I, can't find those because, honestly, it's still kind of a fledgling industry, especially in Southern Oregon. And so there's not a lot of people with wine experience. And so I at least focused on hiring individuals that had a passion for wine or, and or a passion for customer service. But particularly, that I just have a strong interest in wine because, like Christine said, if they're a personable person and they have the passion for wine, you can teach them the rest. So we began doing regular trainings, educating people, our staff on wine techniques and our wines in particular, and then of course everything customer service as well, because we really had a reputation for bad customer service in the beginning, and so we wanted to alleviate that completely. We did decluttering in the tasting room, got rid of the saddle bar stools. We changed our hours to be open daily from 1 to 7 rather than open late at night. Our tasting flights in the past were served all at once in small glasses on a paddle, sort of like a beer flight. And there was no interaction with the guest in that circumstance. And so we changed that. So now when people walk in, they're immediately greeted, invited to either sit at our tasting bar or at one of our mini tables. And then our staff introduces each wine to them and provides ongoing engagement with them to get to know them, talk to them about the wines, etc. For us, it's really important to remember that the focus of our business is wine. It's really easy to get caught up in the live music or the food or the other things that you create in order to get people in your doors. But we found that those things weren't working for us. We wanted to really make sure that we were emphasizing wine. So we don't do live music anymore except for special occasions like wine releases and that sort of thing. And we've eliminated the party scene, which has been the best thing we've ever done. Regarding food, I wanted to talk a little bit about food. In Oregon, we are required as wineries to serve food, and since we are focused on providing the highest quality experience that we can, we do offer a selection of food items. We try and do as much of it in-house as possible, and really put a gourmet touch to those things. But we still want to keep our guests focused on the fact that they're there for the wine, that they're not coming for food and also having a glass of wine. And so it's tricky to do that, but we have a few little techniques that just kind of subtly keep the focus on wine. Each food item on our menu has a suggested wine pairing. Our staff is all trained not to offer food to the guest, to let the guests ask them about it, so it's not, oh, what would you like to order for your food today? Our location in particular is very convenient. It's very conveniently located to a lot of offices, and because we also have nice food items, we were concerned that we might become a lunch spot, and we really didn't want to be that, which is why I chose not to open until 1 o'clock instead of the more traditional 11 or noon. We do stay open until 7, though, in order to catch that after-work crowd, because, you know, a lot of people like to stop by, have a glass of wine, share a bottle with their friends, whatever. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about as far as our brand is the tasting room itself, the aesthetic in there. It's really, in my opinion, a really beautiful space. It's rustic but elegant. We've got river rocks that came out of the vineyard when the vineyard was originally planted on the walls. Lots of reclaimed wood, vintage style light fixtures. It's pretty spacious. We've got a large tasting bar. Tables and chairs are made entirely out of wine barrels, and we also have a lot of outdoor seating with fire pits and bocce ball, and try and capitalize on our beautiful views. The tasting room it's a really comforting place to be. It seems to really put people at ease when they walk in, and I think that, you know, really encourages them to stay a while and enjoy themselves, and it fits in with our philosophy of, you know, when people walk in our doors, they enter as a stranger, but we want them to leave as a friend. And so, you know, between our staff and our environment itself, that is, you know, and then, you know, providing them with quality wine, that is how we're, you know, working to achieve our goals of being a premium destination. So, thanks.
Very good. So I'd like to open up the floor for some questions, if anyone has anything they'd like to ask Jen or Christine or Steph. And is there somebody with a microphone that is walking around? Yeah. Okay. A few more two-hawk pictures here. There's Jen and her business partner and husband. Her team.
Cool. So I had a question for Jen. So I work at a winery in the Willamette Valley. We have a more, I guess, traditional tasting room experience. We do certainly get, you know, heavy traffic, especially on weekends during the summer. And one thing that we, I guess, struggle with at times is how to approach large groups like bachelorette parties. You know, type of groups, I guess we would say, are looking for more of a drinking experience as opposed to a tasting experience. And certainly, you know, one concern is that they're taking away from the experience from other guests, but also another thing that we find is we don't find the same success selling wine to people in those type of groups in comparison to other customers. And so I guess I have a two-part question. One, do you at Naked Winery find success selling wine to those type of groups? And if you do you have any tips or advice for wineries in terms of selling, you know, bottles to take home to guests that are coming in more to, I guess, drink as opposed to taste and learn about the winery and purchase?
So absolutely, you know, we gear ourselves actually towards bachelorette and bachelor parties. We invite them in. We beef up our staff on the weekends in order to accommodate. Again, it's delivering on the experience, and so at the end of it, they've learned our mission. They've gone through the tasting experience. They've learned our mission and who we are. So it is about that experience of having fun, but they're also learning about us, and they want to learn more. And when you look through the different flights we have of wine, the labels, the provocativeness, it encourages them to take those home with them and to experience there. So that's where we found it's a good selling tool for us. It actually does work well for us.
Oh. Hi, good afternoon, good morning, thanks. I have a quick question about, in general, the attitudes towards tipping and tipping bowls, tipping on different software, and what the general idea is in the market up here for making that available to customers, or if it's perceived as rather invasive or somewhat overwhelming for customers.
Sure, that's definitely something that we've had to navigate through quite a bit. Wine industry software is not as sophisticated as a lot of other industries like restaurant and hospitality. So our software does not actually have a tip line that you can put just on. For us would be service. We actually do not want people tipping on the wine. We feel like that would discourage them from purchasing wine to go. We want you to buy a $300 case of wine. We don't want you to have to then tip $60 on that or feel like you have to. So we did look at writing some software that would, look at adding only things like food or service-related items to the receipt, but it just wasn't possible. So at this time, we do allow cash tips. It is pooled amongst the whole team, and that's not just the sales team, that's also the housekeeping, the chef experience, everything that goes into it. And we do have some customers that feel upset about that, but we try to let them know that this is our job and this is what we're here to do. And so, we don't want to make it awkward for them, but we just don't have great capabilities in the software side to allow it. It would just be very difficult.
Ours is basically the same policy. We have found, though, like you mentioned, that customers tend to get pretty upset when they aren't given the option to tip. And so we do have that as a line on our receipts, and they're more than welcome to fill it in or not. With cash tips, it's also pooled for us, and the whole staff splits that based on the number of hours that each member worked that day, and it is split as well with the kitchen staff and everyone else that contributed to the experience.
We actually, one thing just that she reminded me of is we did find when we did experiment with allowing tips, how hard it was to control inventory on your tasting room side, how much bigger those tastes got, how much bigger those glass pours got in order to, achieve a tip. And that's something that as an owner business, you have to really watch out for. That's not really what you're asking them to do. So.
Yeah, and Naked is the same way. We pool our tips together. If it's up to the customer and the guest if they choose to tip, but it's completely up to them.
And as part of the tasting room survey that we just completed, we did talk about tipping, and so we'll be able to share results of that with you to see what's happening by AVA and also by size of winery. Is there another question in the back?
A very interesting session here. It's more of a comment, and not only to everybody on the panel, but to everybody in the room who works in a tasting room. I'm Scott Burns. I'm a geology professor at Portland State, and I've been working on terroir around the state of Oregon. It's my dream that every time somebody goes into a tasting room, that the people who are pouring the wines are going to say a little bit about the geology of the area, the soils that you have got, the clones that you got, and the year. I give a lot of talks on terroir, and I said this state has a lot of educated people who go tasting, and they want to know differences that they have got. And so we're going to be working with the Oregon Wine Board to try and put together a YouTube video, 5 minutes. Willamette Valley is completely different there. We finished the Gorge. That's a completely different story up there. And then in the 4 major areas down south, the Umpqua, the Illinois, the Rogue, and the Applegate, the same thing there. So the people in the tasting rooms can get an idea of what to tell the people who are coming in and why the wines are different, not only in the varietals, but everything else. So hope that's my wish, hope my dream for someday in Oregon.
Thank you, Scott. There's a question up front. And also the Oregon Wine Board's put together the great resources for each of the different AVAs that talk about the soils, the geology, the weather, and so on. So, and I'm sure you had a hand in that. Yeah.
I'm interested in the balance between offering more amenities like the bocce ball court or the fire pit while keeping the focus on the wine tasting and the wine sales, and just wondering how you make that determination when that kind of amenity is helpful and when it is harmful.
It's one of those balancing acts, like you alluded to. It's you have to offer some things other than wine that make people want to stay for longer periods and consume more and become fans. The more time they spend there and enjoy themselves, the more it becomes a part of their heart in a way. They soften and just really find that they are falling in love with your space, and then they therefore are falling in love with your wines as well. So that's what our philosophy is on that.
We share that. We really believe that we're in the tourism industry, and for a long, long time, we have seen wineries that really did not want to be in direct-to-consumer sales, but it is so much about how being smaller producers in Oregon is how we're going to share our story and how we're going to attract people to come here. We're very small. We don't have a lot of distribution nationwide. So in order to, differentiate yourself between you and your neighbors, there has to be something that attracts them. That's, maybe not a very popular thing with others that, want to really limit what the agricultural purpose and wine tasting is.
And same with us as well. It's about them coming in and having a comfortable setting, able to sit back, have that conversation with you, enjoy their glass of wine. Whereas, you don't want it to be stuffy, and you don't want them to feel that I have to get my wine and I have to get out of here. You want them to stay a while. You want them to enjoy themselves. So creating that experience for them as well.
There's another question up front.
One over here. It's really a comment to Jen. I think I'd like to compliment the decisions you and Ross made coming to this business in 3 short years. And I mean, this is a complicated topic, especially scaling back events and activities. But I watched you guys from the beginning in converting it back to where you are on farmland, you're on EFU land, which puts you at variance with, some of the other folks. I mean, Christine Willamette Valley Vineyards actually has a special exclusion along with King Estate to be able to, they meet the criteria to have food service at the level they do. But I would think the majority of people in this room, we don't. We're on EFU land. We're pretty much given this special activity to commercially sell a product, the product that we grow, is we're the only form of agriculture in Oregon that's allowed that privilege. And I think the fact that you and your husband saw that and wanted to live within the land use constraints that there are is a real testament, because you're really focusing on the wine, that's why we're given this exclusion.
Thanks, Michael.
A couple of women down here. We could probably hear you.
There's someone right here. Just a second.
So I can't remember what seminar it was yesterday, but we got some good statistics about the difference in wine club sales and maybe total average ticket, maybe, between a stand-up bar tasting and seated tasting. And at my winery, I don't have a separate area to treat special guests in a different way with a seated tasting. So I just wondered, can you just talk a little bit about that? Anything else you can tell us? Because that statistic was great. I believe it was 3-ish% wine club conversion rate versus maybe 11.5%. So not even so much wine club, but more sales, average ticket, that kind of thing.
Yeah. We just recently did a research trip down to Napa and Sonoma where they do even more seated tastings to learn more about it. And we're really surprised to see wineries that just built or remodeled their tasting room completely remodel again because they didn't allow enough seated tasting space, and just how successful and how the customer is really seeking that experience. So it would be my goal in life to remove our bars completely, because we see the same thing. We see 3 to 4 times more spend on a seated tasting. Definitely that level of wine club conversion on the seated tasting. And then we get so much more customer information to put into our CRM database to follow up with them. And so we're in the process of building 3 more wineries and tasting rooms right now. None of them have tasting bars.
And do you charge a different fee for seated tasting? What's the difference?
Yeah, so on a seated tasting, we're typically including bites of food, not food service, but cheese plates or chocolate, something that does work, and it's a longer period of time than we're spending with guests. So it's usually about a $5 more tasting fee, but it has the same, it's waived for the same bottle purchase, and you easily see the bottle purchases on the seated tasting, so we really don't end up charging for them specifically.
And we have, you can come in and you can get a splash, come up to the bar, you can get a splash, or you can have that seated experience with your flight. And then we also have tried to designate areas that are specific for our club members so that they can have that seated experience with us as well.
And for us, we just, we have the ability to offer seated tastings as well as bar tastings, but for us, it's just a staffing issue. We just make sure that we have the staff so that even the people at the bar are receiving the exact same experience and interaction as the people that are seated at a table. And so for us, we don't see a huge difference as far as seated tastings purchasing more than bar tastings. They're actually all purchasing more. That was another thing I wanted to mention that I left out when I was talking about all our changes is these changes that we have implemented are clearly working because our wine sales are up 60% from 2015 to 2016, and our wine club has grown by about 120%.
Oh my.
So it works.
Yes, hello. Thank you for sharing your stories. Are very helpful and very, very different. I just want to ask you about when did you come up with the topic about being a wine club member? Did you do a data capture and then you send an email, or you do it right away, or how do you come up with that topic?
It starts right away in the tasting room for us. And throughout your tasting, we're talking about who we are and enticing you to become part of our membership. Also, at the end of your tasting, you get to take complimentary glasses home if you choose to sign up. And then our wine labels, like I was saying before, they play along with who we are. So that encourages them to want to learn more about, well, how do I learn more about your wines? How do I see more of what you have as a selection that plays along with this experience that you've created for me? Yeah, that's basically, it's definitely from the get-go, but it is about that relationship. So your key performance indicators are going to be getting them to sign up for the club. From that, then your sales per taster are going to go up, your ticket counts are going to go up, and then you're also going to get that email attribution. You're going to get that for your database as well.
Ours is also right from the beginning. Our staff is trained to, one of the first questions they ask, if not the first question, is, are you a member of our wine club? So it gets that guest thinking about it right from the beginning. Our wine list has the wine club pricing listed on it, as well as regular retail pricing. Yeah. So they're seeing the benefits all along. And then the staff is just always looking for whatever opportunities they can to kind of slide in, the perks that they would receive if they were to sign up for the wine club.
Build it into your visuals. There's someone here that does this really well. I saw Earl and Hilda Jones walk in. They have a wine club party annually. That's a fiesta theme, and it's built into the visuals of their space too, that you can easily talk about something when there's a picture to relate to it and something to celebrate about it that does not feel salesy. So if you have visuals of your pricing, of your Smiling Wine Club, of even the different tiers, different exclusive bottles they get in the tasting room, it's a really easy conversation starter. It doesn't feel forced.
So I'm going to wrap this section of our program up right now and let Vicki share the tasting room survey, a snippet of the results, and then we'll have time at the end for some more questions.
Yes. So as many of you may be aware, Capiche conducted what I believe is the largest study of tasting rooms in Oregon, and we did that last summer. And I want to thank Dr. Greg Jones, professor
and research climatologist at Southern Oregon University. He consulted with me on the statistics. And I also want to recognize Robert Trotman, who is the Retail and Business Development Manager at Two Hawk Vineyard and Winery, for his consultation with our survey as well. Our purpose really was to examine trends and opportunities for growth specific to Oregon tasting rooms, and we wanted to get a little bit more granularity in the data to see if we could find regional differences between some of the things that we've seen in the Wine Business Monthly and Silicon Valley Bank survey reports that we appreciate receiving every year. And so we decided that we would look at some of these data by both AVA and also by annual case production to see what we can glean. And I think by the time we have our final report ready for you, there'll be about 80 some odd charts and tables and the like. So it's a pretty long document. There is a very abbreviated version of it at booth 602, I believe, downstairs, and there are 50 copies of those. If you want a copy of that and you weren't able to receive one, just drop me an email. I'll give you my email address. And certainly all the participants in the survey will be receiving a full-blown report, as we promised, in exchange for their participation in the study. And also, we'll be doing a road trip to several of the regional wine associations to really talk about the data and what it means specific to that region. And if you're concerned that we may not come to you, just let us know that you're interested, and we'll be delighted to visit with you and meet with you and whomever you'd like to assemble. So let's see here. So participant-wise, we had just a little bit over 72% of all of the Oregon tasting rooms participating. I want to thank the Oregon Wine Board for their support. They got us started with an initial email list, and then we combined that with what we learned from Wines and Vines print and online directories, and lots of online research for the various AVAs. We also looked only at primary locations, so if a tasting room had multiple locations, such as Naked does, then we would ask that the information be filled out about the primary tasting room. So service types, that came up today. So let's see here. We'll jump ahead and look at service types. So you'll see there in this particular chart that we don't have Walla Walla or Columbia Valley or Snake River Valley in this AVA report, and we did that because we did promise anonymity to participants in the study, and we felt that we could not honor that if we broke that down. But those areas are represented in the annual case production documents. So what's really interesting about this is it would appear that we're doing a pretty good job with seated tasting and whatnot. Although this is just a little bit misleading, as you'll see in just a moment, where we've got standing room only in Southern Oregon. If we break out all that data, we find that almost 1/4 of all of Southern Oregon's wineries have standing room only, no seated tasting. So we consider that as an opportunity there. In the Willamette AVA, 20% have only seated tasting. And so that's something that we just wanted to show there for your attention. Now, when you look at the type of service available by AVA, it's the majority of that standing room only is in our 1 to 2,500 annual case production. So that will give us a good guide. We have something that we might want to talk about with some of our smaller case production wineries. We had really hoped also, and I apologize, we have to do this as such a drive-by because there's so much data. I tried to pick things that would have meaning as broad spread as we could. We had also asked about number of visitors to tasting rooms, and we found that it's really unclear how and if anybody is really counting their visitors. Some are doing it very, very well, using point-of-sale systems and other mechanisms, but how many of you were at Leslie's Wine Board or Wine Club dashboard session yesterday? right? And she gave us this wonderful thing, and thank you for that, Leslie. I want to give you a shout out there. A wonderful document on how we could measure the health of our tasting rooms. But if you don't have that visitor data and you aren't collecting it in some kind of a consistent way, you've got some difficulty being able to really assess the health of your tasting room. We found that more than 1/4 of the tasting rooms did not answer the question. 1/4 said that they do not tabulate that data. And then the others gave us beautifully rounded numbers. 5,000 wine club members visited every year, or 1,000 non-club members, or 200 from the trade. So we just don't have any confidence in that data, and I hope that that's something that we can look at improving as we move forward on that. Tasting fee waivers, things that trigger the waiver of a tasting room fee. This is really interesting to me because joining the wine club is what's going to build us brand loyalty and your brand ambassadors. And if you look at that chart there, Southern Oregon, only half of the wineries, just a little over half of the tasting rooms, are actually triggering tasting fees if you join the wine club. But if you buy one bottle of wine, almost all of them will give you a waiver of the tasting fee. So what that just does is it makes us ask whether or not we're reimbursing for tasting fees on the right things. So some good information for you there. We also learned that the situations that trigger tasting fees by annual case production is completely consistent with all the previous research. Everything that you've seen in the Wine Business Monthly, all of that is consistent for the 5,000 or greater category. But that joining the wine club for the small tasting rooms, again, with the small case production, only half of them giving a reimbursement for that, and it just makes us pause and wonder why that might be. This was also a fun one. We wanted to find out how much a customer had to spend to get a waiver of the fee. And the minimum column, I'm not sure that we don't have an outlier there with somebody reporting in from Southern Oregon saying that if you spend $2 at our tasting room, we'll waive your fee. We heard that fee waivers were given for birthdays, anniversaries. Somebody reported they do it on personality. Oh, why not? What I think is most important about this data are the most common, that category on the very far left there that I want to call your attention to. So generally, what was reported to us is that both the Columbia Gorge and the Willamette Valleys, by and large, you're going to have a $50 tasting fee. That's what was reported, while in Southern Oregon, your tasting fee, you would have to spend that $20 to hit that waiver point. So let's see here. The amount that a customer has to spend by AVA, again, that $2 outlier is that we know is from Southern Oregon, comes from the smaller annual case production. But again, the amounts that have to be spent, you can see that in that last column there. One of the things that we'll do on our, I'll call them road shows, if you will, is to look at local unemployment rates, because that really informs this information, which really had some surprising information for me. The Columbia Gorge reports a great amount of difficulty finding staffing, and that's less reflected in our other wine AVAs. And then the ability to find staff. This surprised me as well. I would have expected that the very smaller case production groups would have a difficult time finding staff, and the data proved that, or showed that not to be true. Somebody mentioned or asked a question about tasting room incentive compensation. That popped up here. And I found this really interesting, that the rewards may be something that we should consider as an industry together. So when we look at payment for new wine club members, only half of the wineries in the Gorge would give some kind of an incentive for that, a little more than half in Southern Oregon, and a little bit more in the Willamette Valley. Yet, the most recent report from the Wine Business Monthly and Silicon Valley Bank tell us that the trend in North America is 65%, so we're a little bit behind there. And payment for contact data capture, we're really not rewarding for that at all. And as was mentioned in yesterday's program, again, I have to give you a nod to this because these folks are ready to buy. They walk in your door, they're ready to hand you money, and we don't even know who they are when they leave. So that's something that's a real opportunity for us to improve here in Oregon. And again, if you want to look at the same data set only by annual case production, what I found, what's so interesting to me about this particular graphic is that it's the small annual case production that are doing a really struggling in that area of payment for new club members, while we are meeting or exceeding that trend of what's happening nationally for all of the other size annual case productions. So that would suggest to me that we need to spend a little bit more time with our smaller case production operations and see what we can do to help support that. And then again, you can also see that payment for contact data capture is still quite low, all the way up to the 5,000 case production. So really what we learned from all of this, we looked at beer service, we looked at minors, we looked at average costs for reserve tasting, hourly wages, tipping, and all those, and you'll be able to see that in our full report. It's just been further cemented for us that we really need more research specific to Oregon. We need to be able to continue to break it down by annual case production. We need to break it down by AVA. And we've been debating about what do we want to study this year. And if there's something that's really burning in your mind that you wish that we would research specific to Oregon, our tasting rooms, wine clubs, I hope you'll let us know that, because we will use that information to inform our next statewide research project. I do want to shout out again to the Oregon Wine Board, who really got us started with a comprehensive list of the wineries. And at this point, what I'd like to do is open the floor back up to questions, either about the data you've seen here or for our panelists, because there were so many questions remaining that we didn't have a fair opportunity to get back to folks. Yes?
So it sounds like you're all pretty much large wineries. We're small wineries. Are there any things that you feel like you might be missing out on, or suggestions of things you think small wineries should capitalize on because they're small?
Well, we're actually very small. I mean, we're still right around 1,000 to 1,500 cases per year for Two Hawk. And the biggest thing that comes to my mind is just to focus on creating relationships with your guests. Yeah, I think someone mentioned earlier that there's a lot of there's customers that come back just to see their favorite staff member, or members, as the case often is. And so I think that is a huge thing to focus on.
I would also add to that to give them something new to experience each time. So whether it be the launch of a new label or whatever that is, give them a reason to come back. So you create that relationship, but then you give them a reason to come back.
I have a question for you. Have you found with tasting fee refunds, have you done any research with what particular number? Is there a magic number of, like, if they spend $50 or $100 that brings or drives in sales? And if so, like, is that based on winery size?
Yeah, we've done that trial. We like to get people out of the thinking of minimum dollar purchases, because it just puts a barrier in people's minds. So we went with a bottle number. So a 2-bottle purchase waives the tasting fee, just because, bringing up $50 or whatever number you want to put, it just kind of was an obstacle to then overcome for people. And we got feedback from our staff from that, and we run 3 tasting rooms, and they are actually all different by kind of the general feel of that, but they all agreed on the 2-bottle.
Does that push them to a second bottle if they're already buying one? Is that a sales driver?
Yeah, absolutely. It is so easy for some of our tasting room guests to say, "Oh, it looks like you really enjoyed that Pinot Noir. If you get to, you waive the tasting fee." So.
What are your guys' tasting fees?
So we have 2 flights. Our daily flight is $10, and our reserve flight's $15. Our seated tastings are $20, and we go up from there.
Ours are 7, 8, and 9, depending on the white flight, the mixed flight, or the red flight.
And ours are 15. Those will be going up in March to 15, and then we do splashes, just general tastings for $2 as well. But encouraging them to sign up as part of the membership also is going to decrease that cost. You know, you can get this tasting now, but join and get wines for this discounted price. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've worked for smaller producers in the past that have done a goal of trying to lower the number of tasting fees that they actually rang in that day, and they rewarded their staff on that. So if you have wine club members that are converting, or if you're getting people over that minimum spend, definitely celebrate that success on your team.
We have another question here.
Yeah, this kind of triggered in my mind when we were talking about the tipping thing. How much do you pay your tasting room staff? Because you're asking them to actually offer a lot of service, and they're not getting tips. So, yeah, how much do you pay your tasting room staff?
Sure. So our compensation is confidential for their sake, but I would say they're pretty low bases. You're talking entry-level jobs, but the rewards based on incentives and on performance and on team performance and on pooling tips, it can become, a sustainable job for those that are in our tasting room doing well. It's most of the time people's lifestyle or hobby job or entry-level job in our industry, so we see them there for a couple years before maybe they move to different positions within our company. So there's not, we don't have the highest paid employees working in our tasting room staff, but I think that it can get them out of a service job maybe where they could go make tips and they can still do quite well.
Ours is on our website. We offer a base of $25 per hour. In addition to that, we want our staff to stay around because they'll get the members to come back. And so we offer incentives for signing up for club membership. So it starts off, when they sign up, they get a commission based upon that, but then we take half of that and we pool it between everyone. So everyone's a part of the team. And then in addition to that, there's a small percentage that for each year that they stay on as a member, they also get a percentage of those sales as well.
So does anybody want to take a guess as to what the average price is?
25.
I think we're all going to start working there.
Right? So the average.
That's easily, that's double than what our tasting room starts at. So.
The average hourly starting rate for tasting room staff in the Willamette Valley is $12.67. The average starting salary rate in the Columbia Gorge and Southern Oregon is right around $12.35, based on the data we collected.
And there was a question over here, I believe.
Hi there. I have 2 questions. One's, and they're completely different. The first one for the panel, is anybody able to capture the duration of time that guests are in the tasting room and correlate that to revenue in a way? Okay.
That's not data that we have, actually quantified. I mean, our staff could, sit down and give us a general idea, but that's not something that we've actually, quantified.
Yeah, ours is,
My other question is on, I imagine we're similar to lots of folks where we have kind of some primary tasting room folks and then some kind of bench side, and I was wondering if you could speak to the how you divide up incentive for club or commission tip. Is it purely based on hours, or because it seems, I know that's a little unmotivating for the people who only work one day a month kind of thing. I'm wondering how you address that.
No, we pay them individually, and then there's also group incentives for hitting sales goals in wine club signups as a team, and also for hitting other benchmarks as a team. but the rewards for wine club signups and for incentives on wine sales are tracked individually. So we do half case and case incentives as a dollar amount instead of commissions. Commissions would, I mean, we work in a very low margin industry. It would risk our company if we were to pay commission on wine sales.
Anything from either of you?
Yeah, we don't at this time do a sales commission program, but wine club signups, we've got a small club and a large club. So if a staff member signs up a wine club member for the small club, they get a $10 bonus, $20 for the large club. We have such a great team that works as a team that oftentimes they'll volunteer to split that commission with another team member that they feel like they kind of equally got that member to sign up. But as far as cash tips, that's just a daily thing. Credit card tips as well. So it's not necessarily like, you know, they only worked X number of hours that month. It's however many hours they work that day that goes back onto their paycheck. Well, the credit card tips go on their paychecks. The cash tips, they split up at the end of the day and take home.
So Vicki has her business cards up here. If anyone would like a copy of the survey results, come pick up a card. I'd like to thank my panelists and Vicki for a very nice session. Thank you.